Welcome to Sportsball Roundup.
Yeah!
Now here's your hosts, Devin and Reese.
Yes, hello, and welcome to Sportsball Roundup. I am Devin. Joining me is my co-host, Reese. And Reese, we have a week gap between college football championships and the bowl games. So there's not a lot of college to talk about, but there is pro sports happening. We'll start with the NBA. The Lakers defeat the Pacers 123-109 to win the first ever in-season tournament. And rumor has it that they are going to raise a banner for the in-season tournament. What do you think on that? Do you think that's a kind of a weird flex, or do you think it's something that they can brag about?
I think it's kind of a weird flex. It's kind of in the middle, but mostly a weird flex, as you put it. I don't think they need a banner for the end season tournament. It's just starting out, so it's not really a big deal. I mean, it's more to get the players actually trying hard during the early parts of the season or toward the middle of the season. Not to say that some aren't trying, but most of the stars are either trying to save their energy for the playoff run down the stretch, or just lackadaisically playing. I think the tournament's more up more for that, to get them playing hard for something, but I don't think it needs a banner. The Larry O'Brien trophy would be the banner raising.
Yeah, I don't think it needs a trophy either, like a banner raising and a whole ceremony. Like, a trophy is cool. I think it comes with a bonus, so the money's cool. But the the banner raising, that's a little much,
right? Yeah.
Especially because it's whatever. It's an in-season tournament. Like, it doesn't really have any implications as far as the NBA finals go or anything like that. It's just a tournament.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of cool to see, a lesser team like the Pacers actually get there, because I guess the wins in the tournament did actually count toward the record.
I don't even know if a lesser team is what I would call the Pacers. Sure, they're not the Celtics or the Lakers, but they've turned out to be a pretty decent team.
And yeah, the Pacers are a good team with Halliburton, but I'm just saying the Pacers haven't been to the playoffs in a while. So that's all I'm saying. It's just,
Gotcha.
This is not to see the normal teams like we saw the Lakers. We kind of figured maybe they'd have a chance, but not seeing like a Celtics or Bucks or any of those teams, they're kind of refreshing.
Yeah, I think you're right, Reese. I think it is refreshing to see a different team other than the Celtics, the Bucks in, I guess, contention for something, and we'll see what happens. I guess the Pacers aren't as bad as maybe people thought they were, and honestly, I think we'll look out for them in the playoffs maybe. Before we get into standings and what the playoff picture may or may not look like, I know it's early for NBA playoff pictures, but we have the standings. But before we get into that, I'd like to talk about something that had happened last night and is indicative of the entire situation in general when it comes to sports, whether you're watching college football, whether you're watching NFL, whether you're watching NBA basketball, the refs are making questionable at best calls. And if you call them out on it, you're likely to get fined, ejected, or whatever. NBA, what had happened last night is Jokic had been fouled, and there was a no call, and Jokic talked to the ref about it on his way back down the floor and got ejected for it. That is kind of indicative of what is happening in the NBA. The NFL has had bad calls. Patrick Mahomes blew up on the refs this past week. Andy Reid had criticized the refs in the post-game presser. They have since kind of walked back their statements a little bit, but college football, NBA, and NFL are suffering from bad reffing and also refs with egos. And, I kind of want to hear your take on it, Reese. I personally think that there should be game by game performance reviews by not only the league itself as a governing body, but like teams. Like, take the owner, the head coach, and the quarterback from like the NFL, take the top, couple players and the coach from the NBA, and you all sit in on a meeting probably once a month and go over games with questionable calls and kind of grade the referees, because obviously the governing bodies, the NBA, the NFL, the NCAA cannot be trusted with grading their own referees. The players and the coaches are the one that deal with them the most. Obviously, there's going to be some bias and people, trying to get referees that favor their team, but then you balance that out with both teams being in that meeting together. And I just think that needs to happen because obviously the governing bodies cannot be trusted to put a good refereeing crew together at one time.
And yeah, you make a strong point for the refs being terrible in each sport. And I get that they have a tough job, but it's not very hard. You see a foul, you call a foul. Most refs don't do that sometime, even if it's easy. And because of it, the refs making calls that sometimes, and even the fans or players or coaches there don't see and don't like. I think the refs are decreasing the intensity of the sports world, like them making a horrible call on, say, like a push in the back at like half court of a basketball game decreases the physical nature of basketball. In basketball, football, any sport, any physical sport, you're going to get hit. You're going to get physical. And if the refs call every miniature physical play, in the future, we're going to have non-physical basketball. It's going to be like flag football. And I don't like that. And also you mentioned personal things with the players and coaches. They need to put their player and coach vendettas or likeness of the player aside when they're calling a game. Like, I don't know how many times LeBron has gotten calls or non-calls because he's been disliked or liked by an official. I don't know if an official had to do with that. I'm sure he's liked or disliked LeBron at some point in his career, but if you're a ref, if you're a young ref that's just starting out, you cannot lean on your likeness or dislike of a player to call the game.
I agree, Reese. And as I was listening to you, I have thought of some things. First and foremost, I'd like to take a minute to recognize that refs at the end of the day are human and they do make mistakes. Like you said, they probably have called some bad calls in the past and probably will continue to call bad calls in the future because that is human nature. I mean, until we get, robotic refs, that will always happen. And I feel like that is why replay exists, is to kind of mitigate human error as much as possible. And so human error will always be part of the game. You brought up a point where refs don't have to call every, little tiny foul, and I agree with that. I think that I don't know if that's necessarily on the refs because the rules are written in such that those calls can be made. So I think that an overhaul of the rules in each sport needs to be something that could possibly be on the table. Um, because, like in the NFL, everybody holds. It's just a matter of the degree of holding that gets called. And I feel like, there can be holding on every play ever.
Mm-hmm.
But refs don't do that because it slows down the game so much so that, like, a game that would take like 2 or 3 hours takes like 8.
Right.
So I feel like, some rules need to be like overhauled to the point where, like, it keeps the game flow up, but like it doesn't give an unfair advantage, and that is hard to do. I will admit that would be very hard to do, but it needs to be at least looked at as a possibility of just like, rewriting rules or getting rid of rules that hurt the game. And last point I want to bring up is like, dude, maybe, refs are doing this because of league pressure. If LeBron fouls out of a game, nobody's gonna watch LeBron anymore. If he keeps fouling out of games, nobody's gonna watch the NBA before, especially not casual fans, because casual fans know the brand names like LeBron, like Steph Curry, maybe Klay Thompson, maybe Jimmy Butler, Jokic, or stars like that. If they keep getting fouled or fouls and get like thrown out of games, nobody's gonna watch the games. Nobody's gonna come to the games.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe those brand names get those calls because the league wants to make money, and they know the only way to make money off of casual fans is by keeping those brand names protected. I mean, that is food for thought. I mean, Tom Brady got a lot of calls. Patrick Mahomes has now taken Tom Brady's role and has gotten a lot of calls because they want to protect the brand. They want to keep eyeballs on the screen. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. That's kind of a conspiracy theory, but it's a valid one. But bottom line is, Reese, I think there needs to be something done with refs in sports.
Yeah, and I kind of liked your thought on the evaluations, and I believe that the MLB does something like that with umpires, and the best I think who the best umpire evaluations, they get to work the World Series, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I think
Three.
yeah, you're right, and I think that is something that needs to kind of be carried over into all sports. I mean, don't get me wrong, MLB still has bad umpires, like,
Right. Yeah.
but they don't work the
Yeah.
World Series.
Right. And I think that would kind of level out the playing field in the refereeing game around all sports, is that if you put evaluations in, the best referees would stand out, and they'd be able to work that sports championship game. If the NBA implemented an evaluation of referees over the course of a season, and the top, I don't know, 4 or 5 referees stood out, they'd be able to work, the finals, or the NFL implemented an evaluation of referees, they'd work the Super Bowl, and maybe we'd get, not to say we haven't had a decent Super Bowl, but a decent Super Bowl.
Maybe we'd get less controversial Super Bowls. What you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that I don't even know what the answer is at this point. To be honest with you, dude, I threw out the evaluation as a possible solution, but at the end of the day, I don't know. I just know that there's a problem, and I know that there's a lot of moving parts to it, and I came up with a solution that kind of makes sense to me, but I don't even know if that's possible. I just know that there's a problem. But that just has to be solved. Going back to the NBA standings, in the East, you got the Celtics, followed by the Magic, the Bucks, the 76ers, Pacers, Knicks, Heat, Nets, Cavaliers, and the Hawks round out the East at 10. In the West, you got the Timberwolves on top, followed by the Thunder, Mavericks, Nuggets, Kings, Lakers, Clippers, Suns, Rockets, and at number 10, the Pelicans. Now, moving on to the big news of the week, Shohei Ohtani agrees to a 10-year, $700 million deal with the Dodgers. The only way to make that work and for the Dodgers to be competitive is they structured the deal so Ohtani gets $2 million a year for those 10 years and defers the $680 million for to be paid out at the end of his contract. Belichick has been fired. He will finish out the season, but will no longer be a Patriot. It's crazy to think about a Patriots team without Belichick. I mean, that's all we've known, Reese.
Yeah.
So it's a crazy thing to think about. Caitlin Clark, honestly the superstar of Iowa. I mean, there's no other person, maybe besides Kirk Ferentz, that is a bigger name than Caitlin Clark. She gets another NIL deal with Gatorade. Only the 4th collegiate athlete to do so, and 2nd women's basketball player to get a NIL deal with Gatorade. And, kudos to her, man. I mean, she has been dominant.
Yeah.
And all her hard work is paying off, and I am absolutely all for it. Moving on to the NFL, Week 14, the Saints defeat the Panthers 28-6. Ravens beat the Rams 33-31 in overtime with a game-winning punt return. It wasn't Cooper DeJean because he's not in the league yet, but watch out for Cooper to start doing that as well. Bengals beat the Colts 34-14. Patriots beat the Steelers in a weird barn burner of a game? Question mark.
I don't know about that.
Well, it is for those two teams. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, okay.
21-18 in the Battle of the Backups. Browns defeat the Jaguars 31-27. Flacco 26 for 45, 311 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Bears honestly embarrassed the Lions 28-13. Lions making Justin Fields an MVP candidate. 19 for 33, 223 yards, a touchdown, and a rushing touchdown in a surprising, I don't even know if upset is the word, because the Lions have now lost two of their last 3 in that they should have won. Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
The Buccaneers beat the Falcons 29-25. The Jets, with a angry Zach Wilson, upset the Texans 30-6. It was zeros at half. Zach Wilson, like I said, was angry. Went off 27 for 36, 301 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The 49ers beat the Seahawks 28-16. Brock Purdy went 19 for 29, 368 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. The Vikings beat the Raiders in the lowest scoring game in 16 years. Here's the scoring breakdown. Punt, 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 punt. Missed field goal. Punt, 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 punt. Holy crap, a field goal. Justin Jefferson leaves with a chest injury in his first game back. Madison with an ankle injury, and Jacoby Jacobs left with a knee injury. So just a whole bunch of injuries in that game. The Bills beat the Chiefs 20-17. Josh Allen 23 for 42, 233, touchdown, a rushing touchdown, and an interception, with a crazy lateral from Travis Kelce to Kadarius Toney for a touchdown that would have put the Chiefs on top, but was called back because Kadarius Toney was 1.5 miles offsides.
Yeah. And I know everybody is super mad about it. I know Chiefs fans are definitely mad about it, but it's the correct call. I know we just did stuff on the refs calling bad fouls, but
no, that was not a bad call.
Right. This one was actually a penalty.
Because they show screenshots of, like, players lining up offsides. You know, all the Chiefs fans are like, oh, this guy did, this guy did. All of those guys, all of those screenshots that you saw, they were technically offsides, but they were not as offsides as Kadarius Toney. The rest said they couldn't even see the ball. He was at offsides.
Right. Right.
Like, that's offsides. Like, there's no way around that. And, you know, They all talk about, well, you know, the refs usually tell you to back up or whatever. Well, Kadarius Toney, if you see the replay, he looks at the official and, you know, points at him and then looks straight back. He does, you know, whips his head back to front. He doesn't actually stay on the ref long enough to get the call. Yes or no, you need to back up. Number 1. Number 2, he was on the inside. Usually the outside players, you know, outside the numbers, the actual split out wideouts get the, you know, referee judgment. He was bunched in. Usually wide receivers don't get that confirmation call when they're bunched inside the number because the refs just can't yell that far. And so it was a whole bunch of mess. And Kadarius Toney is on the end of another unfortunate game-losing play. The Broncos beat the Chargers 24-7. Wilson 21 for 33, 224 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, with Justin Herbert leaving with a broken right index finger. Sunday Night Football had the Cowboys defeating the Eagles 33-13. Dak Prescott 24 for 39, 271 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Monday Night Football had 2 games. The Giants upsetting the Packers 24-22 on the last-second field goal, which gives the Giants their third straight win with Tommy DeVito at quarterback. And on the other side of Monday Night Football, the Titans, upset the Dolphins 28-27 with Will Levis 23 for 38, 327, a touchdown and an interception. Tennessee scored 15 points in the last 3 minutes of that game to win and stun the Dolphins. The playoff picture thus far, up to Week 14, has the number 1 seed Baltimore Ravens leading the AFC with the matchup being the Dolphins versus the Colts. Dolphins has a 2 seed, Colts has a 7 seed. 3 seed goes to the Chiefs, 6 seed goes to the Steelers. The 4 seed is the Jaguars, and the 5 seed is the Browns. In the NFC, the 1 seed is the 49ers. The Cowboys are the 2 versus the 7-seeded Packers. The Lions are the 3 seed with the Vikings at the 6 seed. The Buccaneers would play the Eagles. The Bucs actually have the higher seed at 4, and the Eagles have the lower seed at 5. And so with that playoff picture breakdown, we move on to Week 15. No more bye weeks, Reese. Those are all done.
It's a race to the playoffs now.
Yep. Thursday Night Football has Chargers at Raiders. Saturday, it's matchups. Are they exclusively on Peacock?
They might be.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just a weird streaming service thing. I absolutely hate it. I don't think streaming service have any part in football, but here we are. Gotta love it. Vikings at Bengals. The Steelers are at the Colts, and the Broncos are at the Lions.
That should be a really interesting game. I mean, the Broncos started 1-5, and everybody doubted them. I gotta give them props. As I said, they started 1-5, and now they're one game out of being tied for their division with the Chiefs.
That is absolute insanity, and it shows you that even if everybody thinks you're out, keep going.
Right. Yeah, don't give up. Man, you start 1-5, don't settle. Don't settle.
Now, with that being said, there are 2 teams that are actually eliminated from playoffs at the start of Week 15, and that would be the Panthers and now the Patriots. So I feel like those 2 teams can actually give up.
Yeah, maybe.
Sunday has the Buccaneers at the Packers. The Chiefs visit Gillette and take on the Patriots. The Jets are at the Dolphins. The Bears are at Cleveland. The Texans are at the Titans. The Giants are at the Saints, and the Falcons are at the Panthers for the noon slate of games. The 3 o'clock slate has the 49ers at Cardinals, the Commanders at the Rams, the Cowboys at the Bills. Sunday Night Football, you got the Ravens at the Jaguars, and then rounding out the week with Monday Night Football, you got Eagles at the Seahawks, Reese. Looking at that slate of games, I like the Cowboys at the Bills matchup. The 3 o'clock game on one of the 3 o'clock games on Sunday. Also kind of like the Jets at the Dolphins. That could be interesting with the Jets going on that run last week, just destroying the Texans, and the Dolphins losing to the Titans.
Yeah, those should be a couple interesting matchups. Yeah, the Cowboys, I believe, their first game leading the NFC East this year, I believe.
Yeah, the Eagles have had it this entire time.
Yeah, and the Bills looking for a playoff spot, and
Yep.
that should be a really interesting matchup. I think I'm gonna take the Bills there, but definitely don't count the Cowboys out.
Yeah.
Um, also, the Texans and Titans might be a good matchup to watch, a division rivalry, and both fighting for the top spot. You know, the Texans trying to come back after their loss against the Jets, and then the Titans after their comeback victory over the Dolphins should be a good watch. And then some actual good primetime matchups, some good Sunday night football and good Monday night football.
Yeah. Matchups on paper that are good. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, like I said before, I mean, these matchups that haven't looked so good on paper have turned out to be decent.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, I mean, I guess we'll have to see what happens. But for Reese, I am Devin. You've been listening to Sportsball Roundup. Have yourselves a wonderful day.